In this amazing webisode, we are going to navigate the ultra complex terrain of music covers, remixes, samples, and all variety of derivatives. So get ready. If your seatbelt is put on, I'm going to introduce our storied panel here. We have Miss Krystle, who is the top music attorney, for those of you who are dialed into her fabulous YouTube channel, of Delgado Entertainment Law. We also have Aaron Green, who is longtime aficionado at Easy Song in the northern hinterlands of the United States, which we can get into more. We have Tyler Blatchley, CEO and co-founder of Black 17 Media, which is a division of Sony Music Entertainment. And myself, Paul Resnikoff, publisher at Digital Music News. So welcome, everyone. Let's get this started.
All right.
Let's go.
Love it.
Yeah. Great. Hopefully I didn't Benny the Butcher anyone's name, title, company. If not, let's keep going. All right, cool. So one of the really, really exciting aspects of this webisode is there are so many different variations and derivatives, covers, and all sorts of manners to cover and reinterpolate a song. I wanted to jump in and just try to define all the different types of interpolations that are going on out there. Can you guys toss out, I guess, just some of the bigger types of covers or derivatives that you commonly see day to day?
Yeah. Definitely new publishing splits. I get a lot of independent clients, independent artists that want to add original composition to an existing copyright. And it might be a 50-50 kind of thing where they record everything themselves, but they're using several choruses or a bridge or something like that. Those are the most common. Like, for example, we help out a ton of aggregators where people, they're starting the conversation with mechanical licensing, but this isn't a standard mechanical license. So new work publishing splits where we have to propose a deal to the publisher and actually submit audio. That is the most common in our world outside of, general adaptations.
So Aaron, you're talking about something that just strays wildly from a straight up cover where anything that deviates from that, you need to go back to the publisher, the recording owner, and get a special level of permission, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And again, this isn't just lyrically. I just did 2 this morning where we have a fantastic Brazilian jazz group that actually big fans of Miles Davis. And they actually wanted to take two compositions from Miles Davis inside their own, where they called it Smiles for Miles. And it's actually the birth of one of their children. It was really cool how they did it. So I try to humanize these, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to a very strict songwriter camp to see if they it's like an audition. Do they like the material presented? Did we offer a good deal template? In this case, we're giving back 100% publishing rights to the original owners. We're hoping for, again, a nominal fee, maybe something they can afford, but we had to present the material in the first place. But obviously, it doesn't always have to do with lyrics.
Ms. Krystle, let me throw it over to you. So Aaron's talking about a very formulated, proper process in which everything is done by the book, and that's fantastic. That's the way it should be. Do you see artists, producers, anyone just sort of taking something and running with it and just sort of trying to clean up the mess later? How much of that is going on out there?
I covered this a little bit on TMA. We were talking about how Spotify just purchased Who Sampled, and music producers are freaking out. And as I'm seeing in some videos, being like they're exposing the crimes, right? So Who Sampled being a platform that kind of tracks where the samples, where parts of other people's songs have been used in new songs, and sometimes the samples were not cleared, right? Sometimes those samples were not properly licensed, and so part of the conversation is just like it's been a culturally appropriate kind of thing to sample, and it's happened so much, and then it became an awareness thing. People were like, well, no, you can't actually do that. So then once you become aware, what's been interesting is just to see what happens with like major labels, for example, right? The ones who have the deep pockets to go after all the infringers. as far as, settling, coming up with, new deal terms, because if you got a hit song and you remixed it, you sampled it, and, Tyler, I'm sure can speak to this, but I do want to just be very clear about this in the legal sense, where you kind of started the question was about, let's say cover songs. If you're doing a cover, it's your version of an existing song. So that means it's the same words, it's the same structure, but you get to do your new version, right? Take it to a new genre, do a totally new, interpretation, but you do have to keep the essence of the song. What we're talking about with sampling, for example, is you take it from someone else's pre-recorded, it's on Spotify, you know what I'm saying? So that's where I think just understanding the terminology differences will help in this conversation.
That's great. I'm actually was hoping we could really establish what's out there, because a lot of people don't really know the ground rules. Tyler, what do you tell people who are just getting familiar with derivatives, covers, samples? How do you break it down for them quickly?
Well, yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of younger artists and kids that, come from the social media era. And I think their view of it is a bit different, partly because of the way that they grew up. And I think, one of the things, especially that AI is doing, is it's really blurring the lines between interpolation, sample, cover, and remix. And one of the reasons that's happening is because it mimics so perfectly. And so I hear a lot of covers now, or, interpolations where AI might have been used, and it sounds identical to the original sample. So there's really no way. And I think a lot of younger people want to approach it from a subjective stance, and as opposed to what copyright law says. And I think in some cases into the future, we're going to have to, because this stuff is just kind of all blurring together. And I the way that I kind of explain it to them, we put out 30, 40, 50 songs a week at Black 17, and there's a lot of interpolation, not straight out covers, but definitely a lot of interpolation of melodies, vocal melodies, things like that. And we have to be really careful about it and just kind of inform them what the process is, the fact that they can't necessarily claim the publishing side, they have to get a compulsory license. And yeah, it just kind of depends on who you're working with, what country they're from. I think that the perspective is skewed a lot because of the way content creation works on TikTok and Instagram. And there's a lot of mimicking there. So sometimes they think about it in the same way. And we have to kind of switch that perspective.
Now, just a quick follow-up question on that, Tyler. So often on social media, the licenses are pre-baked, right? You can go, you can sample, you can use tracks. I can just drag in a track to accompany any type of short form video that I have. Is that also creating a lot of confusion?
Definitely. Because I think, the way, if you go back 10 years ago to, how TikTok really gained popularity, right? This whole concept behind trends is essentially people copying other people so that they can get similar attention for a post that already went viral. And so that's what I kind of mean in the way that they think about it. They'll think about other people's music or melodies in the same way that they think about copying, some trend on a 30-second video on TikTok. So I think that's really what we're kind of up against a lot of times, is for them to understand that they are infringing on other people's rights, and that it's different than if you're just mimicking a 10-second video where you slip and fall down the stairs. It's different to take someone's full chorus and apply it and just kind of change the rhythm and call it your own.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that, because I always just take a step back and I think, wow, just going back hundreds and hundreds of years, this borrowing, copying, as Picasso might say, stealing, has just been going on forever. So it just feels like we're sort of in an accelerated version of it. Anyone else out there seeing sort of a confusion or cloud as it relates to borrowing, if you will, or covering or stealing music and not quite understanding the rules around it? Aaron or Miss Krystle?
Sure, I'll take that one. So well, back to the interpolation conversation, and then Tyler, follow-up question. When you have something that you think kind of sounds like an interpolation, I'm curious what you guys do. So I'll come back to this. But the definition of an interpolation being, it's not a sample. If we sample, it's an actual piece of the sound recording itself, right? So we're taking something like a vocal, a guitar. Interpolating is going to be more like If you guys remember Beyonce, she put out one of her records. She had that song Energy, and it was interpolating Milkshake by Khalees. And so it wasn't taking anything from the original, but it was interpolating the rhythm, right? The style, maybe some of the words, right? So interpolation by definition is going to be you're getting far away from it being a cover. It's not just your version of it. It's now, well, maybe it's the whole thing and you replace the chorus. Maybe the chorus is a brand new lyric. So Paul, back to your question. That's where I see where creators take a little step outside of it being a cover. It's not huge, but it's enough where they're like, look, I made a whole new verse. Now there's a third verse where there never was. And now it's not actually a true cover. And that's where they're going to run into problems.
Yeah. As a fan of music, I always just love the reinterpretations and building and all of that. There was a famous example too in which Drake just took this line from Rappin' Forte, or a 90s rap artist, and it was so great. I just loved it. And part of it was just how rap and hip hop culture is. It's everybody knows the most famous lines, and you'll hear endless references in all kinds of different songs. But when does that cross over? It almost feels like it's never going to be quite resolved, Miss Krystle. I don't know your thoughts about that.
Well, back to now the practical. So Tyler, I'll ask you. So you have something, you're like, you know what? It kind of sounds like this thing's interpolated. Are you a hard no as a label? We don't want to take on that liability. What do you guys do?
That's a good question. Well, we're not a hard no. It kind of depends on what's being interpolated, and if we feel like we can get the clearance, or we can at least start on that, right before, maybe a couple weeks leading into the actual release. I'd say because we do have a lot of problems where we find out things were an interpolation, or there was a sample that was on there that we weren't aware of, and we get a copyright takedown. It happens in the world that we're in a lot. And in all those situations, we do solve those problems and compensate based on back royalties and deal with that. But yeah, I think if we hear a really big interpolation or something, we definitely block that. But I think it's kind of a case by case thing, I would say. And I think especially if a song blows up, then we really press the artist, are all these your original melodies? Right. Is everything yours? And one of the problems that we run into a lot is these sample packs, where kids will download a sample pack or buy one, and it will have samples in it that are from other songs, and they're not aware of that. So they'll deliver it to us, they'll tell us that everything's in the clear, and then we'll kind of find out later that that's not the case. So, I think a lot of hip hop labels, a lot of dance music labels, they deal with these type of problems. We're aware of it. And I think the best thing you can do is just kind of solve the problem when it comes up. And yeah, I think for us, it's really hard to determine if the client that we're working with is telling us the truth or not. We work with 1,500 kids around the world. They come from all sorts of different countries. And like I said, sometimes they're not even aware that they're infringing on a copyright either.
That's amazing you mentioned that, Tyler, because you're actually talking about innocent infringement, right? You're taking something and it's unclear that it was actually copyrighted and not available for general use. Aaron, are you seeing a lot of issues and infringements that really nobody realized they were actually doing, or they just didn't have the knowledge base to understand that dropping this sample into a track wasn't permitted? Do you see issues like that a lot?
Oh, every day, all the time. I get the number one mistake I will hear from the DIY musician is the producer thought it was fine. The producer or whoever produced the record said, "Yep, I got this from a friend of mine, and we're going to use this." And the first thing I ask them is there any type of written agreement between you two? Is there anything that states that they have 100% ownership, or do they have a license to whatever they're giving you? I can tell you the best strategy is obviously to take it, it's always a hard no. You should always go clear that. The repercussions later on for retroactive licensing versus, well, we're going to be releasing this record in a month or 2 months or next year. It is a much friendlier negotiation table. If you have to go back to a retroactive use, even if it's small views, small uses, let's just say it's not a verified Spotify artist, It's usually the small publishers and the small labels that will put up the biggest stink. It is a money grab. You took their intellectual property. They have their own perceived market value on what they think that's worth. I always praise my type A clients if you're going to spend a lot of money or time or energy inside the studio and actually to produce the record in the first place, and you don't own 100% of what was written or what was recorded, it can be much more costly later on. And it's really important just to come and bring transparency to the table. If you are interpolating a composition for a chorus, or you are using a copyrighted melody and that kind of thing, you have to clear it. To simply brush it away, sweep it under the rug, 1, 2, 5 years later, I mean, right now you've paralyzed that song. If that song ever does have a potential to blow up, or there isn't a filmmaker that wants to use it, or you want to use it for a different project, or it just sits and does nothing, there are companies out there that do get hired to find these samples, to go find infringers. Now, likelihood, probability, again, it's up to the own catalog or the own publisher or the record label to police their own catalog, right? But I can tell you, we get much cheaper rates, much more cheap like advances if you actually take it head on, be type A, and clear it before it's actually released. If you do have to go retroactive, again, what's done is done. The cat's out of the bag. Have to be transparent on everywhere where this lives. That's also a very friendly negotiation. I have never had a case that's ever gone to arbitration, even because usually when we broker these kind of things, it's okay, what budget do we really have to offer? What is really being sampled? And let's math it up. Look at a song as 100% composition. That's one side of permission. Other side is 100% master rights. How much is yours out of this equation from both sides? What's it worth to the rights holder? What's it worth to the actual licensee? So these are the things, but to simply just kind of say, well, was that a Beethoven? Was that public domain? Does that sampled use, do they actually own that composition? That's something where it's definitely a good idea to consult with like an expert. Musicologists are out there, but for someone like myself or Miss Krystle or Tyler, that kind of thing. But again, line up all the rights holders. What are you sampling? What Sony may or may not approve might be vastly different from an independent, publisher. So knowing the composers involved, knowing the songwriters, doing the copyright research, we have over 14,000 publishers in our system for the past 20 years. And I can tell you that some are super friendly. You just have to tell them what happened. And you have to come to the table with a fair offer. And again, you have to come with a defined budget. To do this head on, do it in advance. That is the smart way to do this. It can be exponentially easier to get clearance.
Sounds a lot cheaper, but also more time consuming. That's the
Oh yeah.
And profit margin wise, it's difficult to build a company because from like the kids' perspective, they don't know which songs are going to blow up. So they're just like throwing them out there. And the one that does blow up, that's when they actually have to clear it. But had they gone and paid $10,000 up front or $5,000 or some sort of fee up front, a majority of their songs will never make that back. So I think some people are looking at it like it's more profitable to do it later because they only come after the songs that actually blow up. But It's definitely not the right way to look at it.
It's amazing you're saying that, Tyler, because I keep hearing that over and over again, that just the economics of it and the time of it are just so tricky. Out of 100 tracks, one might be the smash blow up that goes number one with a bullet. And then the thought as well, I'll just deal with the aftermath on that. I know it's not the right or proper way to do, but it just seems like, guys, I'm seeing this as almost more frequent than doing the type of errand, that sort of pre-work and that proper pre-negotiation that should be done.
Oh yeah, no, it's not just songs that blow up. I have to do clearances every day, every hour. Yes, of course, the bigger the target, the more Spotify views, the more YouTube, everything that's been monetized. Yes, of course, the targets are on their back, but I can tell you there are publishers that will hunt, and it's usually the small guys that will go hunt and find their material. And again, the problem is if your song doesn't blow up, and let's just say you do have a songwriter that's definitely needs money, something like that, if they find their property, again, it is like opening up a small business if they are independently represented to go take legal action, to go hire like someone like Miss Krystle here. Again, it's expensive to go after people. However, if these labels, if they do have a playbook, if they do have their own blueprint, how to find these infringers or how to maybe even take down their songs, again, it's a much smarter idea to plan ahead, like I was saying.
Just sort of putting myself in the mindset of a budding producer or somebody or a budding artist who's trying to put out a lot of great material and hoping something really pops. Is there a better way, guys, in which you could potentially just source pre-cleared material here or not necessarily take something from The Weeknd, for example, for your track? Or is that not so realistic?
Before everybody else, I think it's not so realistic because a lot of them are being informed on what to make, especially like the dance producers, based off of what's popular already on TikTok. So it's like a strategic play in a lot of ways. Like when you see an old song from the 90s blow up on TikTok, a week later, you're going to get 10,000 different derivatives and copies, a Brazilian version, a house version, all of these different versions are going to pop up. And that's kind of the game that they're playing. It's very opportunistic driven. And I say the same thing to them. I'm like, if you don't want these kind of problems, you shouldn't sample. And they're like, well, I wouldn't have a career if I didn't sometimes. So it's like, yeah.
A big point I always tell my clients is, why do you have to sample the original? If it's an original, if it's a big Billboard song, there's a ton of music beds and vendors that sell re-records. Again, are the publishers cool with it? That's up to them if you are going to do a remix. But if you're going to sample the original, you're bringing in another layer of permission involved. You have to go after a record label. If it's a big record, that's a big record label. That's very expensive to clear, and it deters, like Tyler was saying, to actually go and do the clearance. Is someone going to spend $5,000 or $10,000 to go sample with Sony Music Entertainment or Warner Music Group or something like that? I always ask people, there's cover audio vendors that are crying for your business to use again, a fraction of the price to do a re-record versus using that original Beyonce or that original other 90s group. So, or re-record, or there's bands that will re-record it if it's like a rock band, something like that. I do this with filmmakers too. I always ask filmmakers, do you absolutely need the original? If I were to present to you a replica and a re-record, and if the publisher's fine with that, we are chopping 50% of the cost out, where we just have to clear your licensing oxygen, which is the composition rights that you need no matter what.
Who are some of these companies and producers, and who are some companies that can offer these kinds of services?
Absolutely.
Oh,
go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? And even to bridge the gap there, right? There's companies like Splice, where they go, come and get a sample, and then also we'll give you a individual per sample that you use. We'll give you a certified license, so that when you want to run into a problem with Content ID or someone's accusing you of this and that, you have this little document that says you have the permission to use this sample. But going back one step and bridging kind of what Tyler was saying, in the marketing gap that's created, what he's saying is that, these great talented producers and artists, they have the ability to be seen because they're playing the game. And the game is find the trending thing, do something cool, right, to set yourself apart. And so you can stay, ahead of the curve. But obviously there is a way to do it without infringing, because what we're talking about, again, is infringement. Like the whole mixtape culture in hip hop, that's infringement. You have to get permission to mix people's music together. Same with the famous DJs on TikTok. But obviously there are ways to do this, going back to even just the covers, you know what I'm saying? And setting aside the sync licensing, component of it. But there are ways to do it where, you can still try to play the game and be like, here's my cover song that I put on streaming platforms, so that you can see my interpretation, my artistry, my production, but you're doing it pursuant to the law. And this is the tough conversation I got to have with my clients. I go, look, your experiential wisdom is that you haven't gotten caught yet, but you're getting bigger. You're talking to me today because now you're finally getting a lot of exposure. And guess what? Target on your back gets a lot bigger too.
Yeah, well, there's always the classic, where there's a hit, there's a writ, and then where there's a big artist, there's a lot more people out there hunting for those artists for violations. So really important point there. There's also another component too, which is that a lot of times you always see this in popular music, that there are just certain production themes, elements, instrumentations, ideas, phrasings that are popular, those I don't see running into any issues. So, for example, I don't know, you could just take an emo screamo era and just say in that, the guitars, the drumming, the way songs are constructed are kind of similar. So that's another way that I think producers do try to work off what's popular, but totally clear of copyright infringement. So another thing to consider for budding artists or not so budding artists.
Yeah,
and then on the risk too. Oh, I'm sorry, cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the one risk, right, that you've got to keep in mind. This is not like a small thing. Let me be clear. My clients who get caught eventually because they're independent artists, thing goes insanely viral. They have 50 million streams. It's so cool. And guess who comes knocking? It's Universal. And Universal, hopefully, is not going to sue you. It's just going to say, pay me all the money or pay me most of the money or whatever. But the reality is that what they have on you at that point, it's done. There's no backing out of it. What they already have on you is copyright infringement under US law. They can seek and get up to $150,000 per instance of infringement. So it puts you in a real bad position. So again, it's a real big risk. All right, Tyler, sorry.
And they know that. They're going to use that as leverage for sure.
Yeah.
But guys, what really happens there? So what typically ends up happening? I mean, the producer isn't bankrupted typically or totally destroyed at 150,000 per infringement, are they? Or is there some sort of deal, revenue share? Do things get worked out?
From my perspective, I've probably done a few hundred of these in the past few years. They usually get worked out. It's going to vary what the settlement is going to be. Typically, when we're handling these, we're showing them statements of all the back royalties that have been collected, and then we're negotiating from there. And typically, we're figuring out a percentage because we sometimes do admin for our artists. A lot of time we're doing the distribution and the master side. So if we're doing admin, we're pulling statements from both sides. We're looking at those, determining what the percentage is. And really, at that point, it's just kind of a subjective opinion. They have an opinion on what it's worth. We have our opinion on what it's worth. And a lot of times we meet somewhere in the middle. Not always. It also depends on the size of the sample or interpolation use as well. So that's one thing. Sometimes it's a tiny, 2-second vocal stab that's in minute number 2. And that's going to be a lot different of a negotiation if all of the melodic structure was a sample or a complete, replay or cover or interpolation.
It also comes down to actual, okay, does the rights holder want to invest in the legal fees to open up Pandora's box here? Do they really want to go through all this? If they think they can recover $150K, which I don't see very often, and these are with very high grossing clients of mine, they can only recover what they can really get. And what I mean by that is, again, they can ask for a full audit or they could mandate a full audit. And again, at that point, is it something where, okay, what has the artist actually earned? What can they prove that they've earned? What's written tangible evidence that they can bring to the table and say, this is all my distribution in all territories worldwide. This is all my sync earnings worldwide. These are all the different avenues. But again, this is a living, breathing asset that we call a copyright. It has its own market value. Does that rights holder have a previous case or a previous infringing case of what they've recovered? Are they basing it off of that settlement? Or is this a snowflake? Has this song ever been infringed before? This is new territory. And yeah, like what Tyler said, it's a custom negotiation. I've had clients in the past where, yeah, I'll have a large publisher demand 30K. I will tell them they don't have 30K. If you, again, it's obviously up to you if you want to pursue legal action, but I can recover 10K for you. That is really their max budget. I'm making 0% on this. This is simply just to get my client out of hot water. Will you accept 10K? And this is what they'll do. Do they have to take down the song? Do they have to take down the video? Or is it like a plant that can keep growing? Is it going to be further monetized to the rights holder? Can we get all of those revenue streams to the correct rights holders? So a lot of times it's coming to a custom negotiation. Again, I'm here to tell you it is usually those 1 or 2 hit artists that really, really need the money, no longer tour, haven't been in circulation for 10 or 15 or 20 years. Again, or is it someone who, okay, money is no object. They don't like the principle that you use this. They don't like how you're representing their baby. At the end of the day, this is their own intellectual property. They do have the right to see how it's going to be used if there is any derivative or anything illegal element involved. So it is perceived value. And again, they will come to the table with all their stats. They will have it. This is what we do. This is what we earn. This is, that kind of thing. So again, it's another reason to just be transparent and come clean. This is exactly what it's earned.
It's amazing,
Well,
Aaron, how I'm just sort of seeing an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other from a producer, because I'm thinking, wow, just having that discussion with Universal Music Group over this track that has blown up on every social media platform. And uh, it's not the worst thing. It's not the absolute worst thing. I have proven my chops as a producer. I'm on the board now. Not that I'm telling people to do that, but it does seem like there is an interesting choice that people can make. If I'm heading up the soundtrack to film, a major Hollywood film, obviously I'm going to be thinking about these things differently. But I can sort of see the devil versus angel problem there off the bat.
But I do want to be careful. So I'm the litigator on behalf of independent artists in particular. And so I can at least share their perspective that while, Tyler is correct in saying that a lot of labels do come to the table, especially majors, right? They come to the table because they're in the business of making money. Mm-hmm. So if there's money to be, that has already been made, importantly, that has already been made. And, to Aaron's point, we can grow this, we can, get more streams and more payments and stuff like that. But on the flip side, I have literally seen the major labels come after the little guys, because sometimes this is what happens. And to the extent, I forget who said it, but can this really break the artist? Absolutely, it can, because maybe they didn't have a lot of money to begin with, and then all the revenue that they had received from that song, now Universal comes in, they say we want all of it. So it can break them. But more importantly, on kind of what happens next, I've seen lawsuits, and this is usually when, let's say, someone is too scared to get a lawyer. They're too scared to respond because they got a really threatening letter from a label. So I've seen all kinds of things happen. And so I just, want to say, have someone who can advocate for you, because the reality is that, setting aside the labels, there are rights holders like legacy acts that are real petty. And so they already have this weapon against you. That's what I'm saying. I have seen, legacy acts. I have seen even major record labels get real petty, but then also weaponize the Copyright Act. Because again, that's what I'm saying, Paul. It's like the deed is done. They have this huge, potential damage that they can come after you for. So that's what I'm saying. Just because I'm fearful sometimes when I offer this typically they're going to reach out, they're going to settle, they're going to work out a new deal. That is the truth. But I get real nervous about even saying that, because I also don't want to advocate for infringement, knowing infringement.
Yeah.
Not only that, history has shown that groups have, quote unquote, gone out of business or broken up over one infringement. I think, if we test my knowledge of history there, I think the Verve basically broke up after. Am I correct on this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's like, what, a Rolling Stone sample?
Yes.
It was a Rolling Stone sample, and they got so dragged into the copyright infringement issues and legal back and forth that I think it essentially destroyed that band. For Bittersweet Symphony?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. They haven't done a lot
there, but yeah. So sage words for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, it's also propelled careers too. I'm not going to say it's the reason for said propel. I mean, think of Sam Smith, for example. Does everybody remember when Tom Petty came after him for the use of "Walk Back Down"? He does a very slow version of the same vocal harmony. It's blatant once you hear it. I believe it's "Stay With Me," and Petty's people. And what's interesting, and again, which is normally a legit publisher. I mean, Wixon team is fantastic. I work with them all the time. But again, you're sampling the big man. That's a huge infringement. But you will see Tom Petty's name as an accredited writer on that. I don't remember the percentage they got of the composition rights, but it's hefty. And instead of tearing down a good artist who has, a beautiful voice, beautiful team, he just kept producing hits after that. They decided, again, yes, I don't know what they settled for, but they took a piece of the publishing and they continue to earn off of that song. So Petty is a writer for that, just like how George Clinton's a writer for so many hip hop songs where he was sampled and whatnot. So again, sometimes it can be collaborative. Okay, they got a lawsuit now, they're making a little more attention. Is it now more, okay, we paid our fee, we paid you a portion, I'm going to keep making hits. And again, is that plant going to keep growing? Do we want to foster that creative process or destroy? Like Miss Krystle says, is it weaponized or is it a partnership? And I've seen both. I even had, I work with lots of 501c3s and churches, universities, lots of nonprofit uses. And I won't mention the university, but there was some infringement. They got a little bit of attention off of a video, and Neil Young's people, we had to work out a deal. And at the end of the deal, luckily, they came out smelling like a rose, where Neil Young actually requested them to actually make a new cover of one of his hit songs. So he commissioned them, say, okay, you're going to pay this very small nominal fee. Don't do it again. But I want you to also, I love what you guys do. I want you to do a cover and re-release it. And it's pretty much mandatory. So he kind of taught the college kids a lesson, but he said, but I want you to record in one of my songs and release it. And then we'll call it Bygones Be Bygones. And it was a creative way to end this deal, which could have been terrible, but he doesn't want to go after a major university. So it was a good conclusion, we'll say.
Oh, brilliant. And also it just reminds me of artists like Elton John, who have these incredibly broad and storied catalogs, and they just broker with a new young artist to remix and sort of splash some new juice on their old tracks. And it's just absolutely brilliant. It introduces new audiences to their music, invigorates the older fans. So wow, that's one of the smartest tales I've heard all day.
It's a good move. I think the last thing I'll say is, one thing that the labels don't like is when the cover interpolation is opportunistic. Like if you're trying to take market share from them on a new song or something like that, that's when you're going to run into problems where they're not going to want to come to a deal. And now the ecosystem is kind of like that. Songs blow up on Saturday. By Monday or Tuesday, there's tons of interpolations, covers, remixes that are getting delivered to all streaming platforms, all DSPs worldwide. And so I think that's kind of that opportunistic kind of ecosystem is one thing they definitely don't like.
And even anticipate for. If you guys remember, Taylor Swift on her Look What You Made Me Do, after she released the song, she's like, hey, Right Side Fred, with your I'm Too Sexy song. She didn't interpolate. She just goes, I think it sounds like... And not that she said he's opportunistic, but just, she just anticipatorily said, I'm going to give you a royalty.
Oh, okay. So this is amazing, Ms. Krystle. Can you please just update me and everybody on what happened in that case? So if I understand correctly, so Taylor Swift just sort of proactively just sent a check.
Yeah, and we've seen people do that, right? Because her hook going, oh, look what you made me do. Yeah. Look what you, which kind of sounds like, I'm too sexy for my, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, she just basically was like, hey, let me just give you a royalty for this. I don't want no smoke. I don't want no problems. Yeah. And of course, someone's going to happily take it. Because a lot of things, what happens is that these big artists release songs and someone says, your melody sounds like mine. Right? Yeah. Your hook sounds like mine. And then they get sued and then they have to settle because lawyers cost too much money to go through the process. So it's something that we're seeing. So I really like the fact that you made that point, Tyler, on just, it's an opportunistic thing because it happens from all angles, especially with big acts.
Oh, 100%. I'm going to switch industries for a second, but if anyone remember, I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball history. In the steroid era, you have all these people getting busted. There is one in particular. There's a gentleman named Andy Pettitte. He's a famous New York Yankees pitcher. Instead of getting caught, he came out and did a press conference and says, hey, listen, I'm going to own this. Nobody busted me or caught. I'm doing this for my kids. I want to be a good role model. And guess what? Everybody forgave him. It was like, oh, great. It's terrible that you did steroids. There were a lot of you that did that back in the day. But again, the way you did it was classy. We appreciate that. We appreciate the self-deprecation, and actually, at the end of the day, will he make the Hall of Fame? No. But the rest of us are like, that's a good guy. He did wrong. but he admitted it without having to get busted. So in the music industry with the Taylor Swift comment, again, a brilliant business decision. And guess what? It's actually good press. It's something to actually bring up. I wanted to bring up one more point on what Tyler was saying about the opportunism. When people do remixes, and let's just say they don't clear it and whatnot, it is a strategy. They will pump paid media. They will pump Google AdWords so they show up higher in the search. When someone wants to search the latest hit song, that is a whole chess game strategy. Can their cover be number one on this platform or this search engine? And people pay for that. And again, they set up shop, they will get the attention, they will get the streams. And again, this can be, it can be a tool.
But wait, just breaking down what you said, Aaron, is any of that illegal, right? Because you have the statutory pre-authorization to do a cover. There's no law that says you can't Google AdWord the hell out of it.
Actually,
Or is there? Okay.
paid media. Publishers, they want their own agreement. If you're using your copyrighted material, you are investing marketing dollars. U.S. compulsory law does not cover that. Absolutely not. No, if you're using copyrighted material and promotional material, absolutely you need to clear that. You have to get express written permission from the rights holder every day of the week. Oh yeah.
So the cover is covered, but then the promotion and marketing on top of that starts to get into some murky water.
Again, Paul, when I do sync deals, it's a huge distinguish between, okay, this is just a regular organic sync deal, non-paid media. There's a premium price right on paid media request or any boosting. That is definitely a premium price that could be 100%, 200%, 500% more expensive than that organic video sync deal. When you put marketing dollars into it, again, they want to know what you're pumping into it. Are you pumping thousands or tens of thousands, or is it just a few hundred? That's going to frame up the deal. But again, more expensive and definitely needs their permission. They want to know what you're using. Again, you're going to invest in this, you should be investing in the license. That's what usually goes on in the mind of a publishing rep.
So funny. So shifting a little bit, amazingly, this statistic might strike you as being totally shocking, but over the past 5 months, DMN Pro has counted more than $5 billion in total music industry funding. So $4+ billion in music IP investment across any variety of financial instrument. It could just be straight equity, it could be debt equity, it could be VC, whatever it is, but just acquiring and trying to grab IP and then use it in the future. Are you guys seeing a lot more appetite for good deals, profit maximizing deals, ways to boost the valuation of an IP catalog more than you have before?
Well, if I actually could even intercept and then direct this over to Tyler. So I'm very excited for Tyler to talk about his label and what they do with marketing. We've talked about it a little bit so far, but from the what not to do. So on the what you do in the IP realm and how to monetize, right? How to get your artists out there. And I think that's what Tyler's label does really well. So if you don't mind, maybe take the question and parlay into kind of what do you guys do with your marketing?
It's pretty much all TikTok promotion. It's like influencer promotion on TikTok, specifically within cultures where the music is consumed. So a lot of the music that we're putting out is 10 to 20-year-old boys. So what are they into? Soccer, anime, video games, UFC, edits, and clips like that. So we work with pages that use our music. And that's kind of the main strategy point. I mean, getting an editorial pitch from Sony on that side for New Music Friday is nice. We do target ad stuff. We do, some YouTube promotion working with different channels and, some Instagram target ads, meme promotion on certain pages there, but all those streams lead to TikTok for sure.
Okay. So to Paul's question about, again, monetizing the IP. So is the intention that you do real good on TikTok and then you push to streaming platforms? What's the end goal?
Well, we monetize all platforms. So we monetize TikTok, it's based off of creates. And then when a song blows up on TikTok, it's going to translate over to Reels and YouTube Shorts typically. So we're monetizing that. And those are pretty significant and have grown a lot for us in the past few years. But yeah, the goal is to try to connect something, get a trend going, and then that translates over to Spotify. That's really the game that we're playing. And we're promoting probably 10 songs a week on TikTok. And we spend six figures a month doing the actual TikTok promotion for all the songs that we work on. And really, we do it in like a tier system. So you start small, you try to get some kind of momentum, and that momentum is going to be represented in the amount of daily creates that are going on TikTok. And if you see a little fire starting, you got to fuel it as fast as possible. And that's just more and more promotion.
So how much fire and marketing was put behind Haven's I Run?
Got him.
I mean, this is a complicated one for me to talk about, partly because Sony's going after it, and that's who our partner is, our great partner, and the guys on the other side, I'm not on the best terms with. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, they did a lot of promotion on that. A lot of, in our world, you do a lot of teasing up front. Artist pages can look like edits pages. They make a demo a day. They're on there teasing with all sorts of different kinds of content and edits on their TikTok page, trying to make something happen before the song is released. And that's what happened to that song. I mean, through Georgia Smith hashtags and different types of strategies there, they got it on people's radar. It caught the algorithm. And, by the time the song came out, it was already doing 1 million plays a day.
What's so strange about that track is I'd never seen a new artist, so never had heard of Haven before.
Mhm.
I'd never seen a new artist blow up that fast and that big. I'm not sure, you're on the platform, obviously way more and more attuned to what's going on there, but I just had never seen anything surge that quickly.
Yeah, it definitely caught. I mean, it's a deep house track. That stuff is blowing up like crazy on TikTok right now. I mean, everybody's chasing it, trying to figure out ways to promote it. We're signing a bunch of deep house songs now. And yeah, I think it's just kind of it just one that caught. I do think the virality was legitimate, but the approach was definitely a trick to the consumer. And the creation of the song, the fact that it's, that the creator openly admitted that they made all of it with AI, that they did, use Georgia Smith's vocal tone, and the AI vocals were definitely trained on her, and they leaned into that. I mean, the Boiler Room set clips, all these clips that they were using to tease, you can go look at them. They have hashtag Georgia Smith on them. They were trying to confuse the consumer, thinking this is one of her unreleased songs, and it worked.
Right. Well, I think that's the big kicker right there. So
Yeah.
I actually didn't realize, of course, it makes sense, the Georgia Smith hashtags, the Boiler Room, just from a standpoint of just a dance and EDM fan. Hey, I understand it's the internet. There's all sorts of different crazy interpolations and AI variations and all that. Okay. But the Boiler Room was, to me, that just, I don't know how it struck you. It just seemed not cool to have sort of this made up version of Georgia Smith out there, and she had to react to it. And that just didn't feel right to me.
Definitely not. I don't like the way that it was done either. I think it's, because people are using AI to make video content for promotion too. So you can take like a Boiler Room clip, drop it into AI, and put a different person in there.
Right.
And like those videos go crazy. Like there's something about those Boiler Room clips that like they're just exciting, they're energetic, they do really, really well on TikTok. So yeah, a lot more people are employing like AI to create the actual video content. And there's a lot of trickery that goes on in that as well.
Right. Right.
So
Well, it
yeah.
certainly added lighter fluid to the fire. So, but just back to my other question here. So, is there a bigger and just overwhelmingly bigger push to maximize the value of IP? Tyler, in your corner, Aaron, in your corner, just if you're sitting on a giant catalog, you spent hundreds of millions of dollars in an IP catalog, you want it out there. You want interpolations, you want covers, you want all kinds of things. It just seemed like the volume of deals and transaction would be far higher now.
Oh, placements are king. It's everything. Getting to know music supervisors, the very valuable ones, those who pitch to the TV networks, all the connected TV networks as well, all the Netflixes and Max and Peacock. If you can get your song placed, it opens up so many avenues, so many doors. And again, it's a lot of times there will be an undiscovered song, but it will be a new TV series or a new CTV series that is like the prize, the top of the mountain. Everyone's asking about placement.
So Aaron, in terms of placement though, that's the original recording and the original publishing, or are we talking about variations, interpolations, covers, or all the above?
Interpolations and covers, if it's properly cleared, definitely those music soups do not want to take tainted a tainted material and go pitch it to one of their contacts, you know.
Sure.
But no, reimagine covers and remixes that are properly cleared. Those are huge to hear in like the latest shows that come out in Netflix. And again, there will be independent artists that will come out of the woodworks, and again, a music soup found them at a local LA show, or they found them on one of their Spotify suggestions or Google Play suggestions, whatever it is. And why do they go after them? Well, they're not a big artist. They are an independent artist, or maybe they're a smaller artist on a bigger label, and their price tag isn't as high to go license that for all those media rights. It's usually a strategy. And again, there's fantastic material out there there are adaptations that will be in the next big movie or the next big series. Why? It's cheaper than actually going out and trying to license the Beatles or Stones or The Weeknd or something like that. So the market value is, it's perceived a little differently.
Right. The other fascinating thing, Tyler, to throw this back over to the TikTok discussion. So what fascinates me is that songs that were sort of buried in the 90s as, I don't know, for lack of a better term, B-sides or, deep album cuts suddenly blow up.
Yeah.
Is any of that accidental?
I think it all is. I think the sophistication of the algorithms, especially on TikTok, the thing about an algorithm is it's a democratized vote. So they've become so sophisticated now that I think they're really difficult to manipulate. So I think the idea behind like getting a catalog and like, a lot of these like finance guys that are coming in and buying up catalogs, it's under the premise that they're going to like boost the music again. I think that's complete bullshit, because I think that, especially coming from doing promotion on all these platforms, you can't really, the algorithm is like a current. And if the current's moving in a different direction, you cannot change the current. The only thing you can do is put a sail up and ride that current. And so, like, to me, I don't really think that there might be a handful of cases where there was a successful campaign to like, blow up a Radiohead song back from OK Computer. But I think generally it's just good music, and the algorithm is pushing it to the top, and new people are hearing it that never heard it before.
Right. And actually, it's the gel between the music and the video, right? So with I Run, I knew this thing was really taking off when I saw it in cooking videos, in exercise videos. It had nothing really to do with the song itself. It just blended so well. It was just such a great track that worked and just took off, and the algorithm was really promoting that. So I guess you see that every day.
Oh, well, Stranger Things, right? So you had Kate Bush's running up that hill. I mean, that thing just took over the planet. But I mean, come on,
Really
brand new audience seeing it or hearing it for the first time. I mean, there was no stopping it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
true.
there's always going to be instances like that, especially syncing in like a film, I think TV show, especially when there's a really emotional moment. I worked at Sony before, and I was working there when that 13 Reasons Why show came out, and I worked for Red Distribution, and Lord Huron had that song explode. And we had put out their follow-up album. It didn't do as good as they were hoping. And then when that sync hit, I think that song's diamond now. So like it's got a couple billion streams. And yeah, it's pretty incredible what a great sync can do. But like typically, I think it's kind of few and far between that those things happen. Maybe once a year, a couple times a year.
All right, folks. Well, we are about at the time when the Oscar music starts kicking in. So, any brilliant parting shots you'd like to leave us with?
You go ahead, Aaron, if you want.
Oh no,
Aaron,
Paul.
end us with a bang.
Yeah, Paul, thank you so much. This is a fun
course.
opportunity. We got to do this again. This is definitely just the tip of the iceberg. We could talk about. I think we come from three really cool perspectives on the industry here. But no, all my colleagues at EasySong.com. I mean, we thank you. Digital Music News is a huge source, and it's a great partnership. And thanks for letting me join.
Well, I just tell people, hey, you got a problem? Just call Easy Song, okay?
Any clearance need, anything's on the table. Free music rights consultation, 40 hours a week.
There we go.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tyler, Aaron, Ms. Krystle, for your time and for educating the industry. I look forward to next time.
Yeah, thank you definitely for having us. And, I'd mentioned it before, but I haven't really done any of these before. I've done like panels at Sony and stuff. But this is one that I think really deserves more conversation around it. And that's why I really wanted to do it, because it's problems that we're all running into every day. And with the whole AI thing happening now, which we didn't get too much into, it's definitely going to, this whole interpolation, remix, samples, all these things, it's going to get even more confusing and murkier in the future. So
yeah, no, I thought it was actually incredible that we didn't fall into the AI discussion because, something that a lot of music producers are doing is that they're using AI to make their samples. So, which is a great point for us to come back together. So also, Paul, thank you very much for
good placeholder for next time.
Thank you, Paul.
Moderating and having us.
A great pleasure. Okay.